All right. It's interesting. I worked in Long Island for the Sperry Gyroscope Company, and I went to a meeting in New Haven, and I came through Norwalk, and I stopped for lunch, and I figured let me pick up a newspaper here and see what's happening, and they were advertising for a food service director, and this was in 1967. And I applied for the job, and I started working in September of 1967. And it was interesting that the board never considered the food services department part of the entire board, and they did not allow us to join a pension plan. But I was able in later years to prove that the board approved in September of 1967 that I would be the food service director, and years later we were allowed to join the city pension. So my first job in Norwalk was to go around, visit all the different schools, and we had 18 elementary schools, and only 6 out of the 18 had a lunch program. When I inquired why the others did not have a lunch program, they said there was no money, there was no interest, and they just couldn't do it. I attended a meeting in Vail, Colorado, of food service people from around the country, and I learned about different systems, including central kitchen facility. And I felt, this was something we could do in Norwalk. The state had assured me that if we built a central kitchen, it would be handled like any other school building. 50% of the cost of the building would be paid for by the state. I worked with the federal government through the nutrition department in Hartford, and I was assured I could get 75% of all the equipment for the central kitchen and all the satellite schools. I got it in writing, and I had to go to, not exaggerated, tens of meetings between the board and the city, and it came to the last meeting. It was at the city, and Mayor Irvin, he was the mayor of Irvin. He later became a teacher at Brian McMahon School. He said, Mr. Harris, I don't think we have the votes. There are 2 of our party's members absent tonight. I said, get them, and he got them. Make a long story short, they voted, and they unfortunately did not vote on the need, what is best for the students. They voted according to party line, and but the one party won, and we got the central kitchen. And I had insisted it had to be finished by May of 1973, because we had scheduled the convention of the Connecticut School Food Service Association in Norwalk. And the building was ready. We had 800 people coming from around the state. They came to Norwalk High School for a huge meeting and a panel discussion that included Congressman Stu McKinney, the then superintendent, Dr. Richard Briggs, the architect, Joe Becker, who was a member of the building committee of the Board of Education, Nancy Perry, who was the state director for nutrition from Hartford. And we discussed all the pluses and the minuses of central kitchens, individual feeding, satellite feeding, and it was a wonderful meeting. Thereafter, for the new school, and one school after the other, and before the end of the year, all 18 schools had a lunch program. we became highly successful. It took time, but we worked very closely with the employees. We worked very closely with the principals, with the teachers, with the PTOs, the PTAs. The philosophy was get the most and get the best out of the people, and then you're going to be really very successful. Start new programs. Okay, don't stick with the same things. Take the advice. There's certain rules and regulations and guidelines you have. You know, you have to meet the nutritional requirements from the state. It's so much protein and so much of all this. Don't only force kids. We started, and let me jump a little ahead. We started many years later a breakfast program in one school, and they said, no, there's no money for that. I said, we handle it. And I had every principal that wanted a breakfast program apply to me for, they wanted a breakfast program. I had to go before the board to ask for permission, and we got breakfast programs. Now, for example, you were at Kendall School. We had a wonderful program. The greatest participation of any school was at Kendall School. We didn't give them a whole apple, these little kids, a whole orange. We gave them a choice of fruits, apple, grape, cantaloupe, whatever was in season. What I had proposed is, it was basically Tom O'Hearn's, and he had the idea, universal feeding. And I took this over, and I became the greatest spokesperson in the country for universal feeding. What is the idea of universal feeding? My idea was, children got to go to school, let's feed them. For nutrition programs, they have to fill out applications. If you live a mile or further away, students get free transportation. If they get free transportation, why can't they get free meals? Why do they have to fill out applications based on family income? In the long run, it is cheaper to keep students in school because you have less dropout, you have less crime, you have less drugs, and it's the future of our country. And working with congressional leaders, whenever they told me there is no money, I always reminded them that it is not a question of money, but that it is a question of priority. Neither Washington nor any state capital, Hartford, Albany, have any money except the money that is sent in by taxpayers. And then it becomes our duty to tell legislators what is the greatest priority for our country, and it is to educate and feed our children, because that is the future of our country. And many times the arguments went out the window, because when we pointed out it's a question of priority. One of our greatest successes truly were Grandparents' Day. We started this at the suggestion of Walter Reck, who was the principal at Marvin School. He came to me and said, Frank, what would you think about Grandparents' Day? I said, a great idea. So we had it at Marvin School, 65 grandparents the first year, and within the next 8-10 years, we had it in every elementary school, up to 3,000 Grandparents' Day. It was truly, Daniela, the greatest day of the year. When some of the teachers and principals objected to it and said, we don't have, this is not part of education. I said, yes, it is, because on that day, we don't only teach them the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, 5 R's, respect and responsibility. We add this to the other 3. And students never were better behaved than on Grandparents' Day. I went every single school day to a school, not to all schools, but to a school. And when kids said, I said, it's the salad. How come you don't try? I don't like salad. How do you know? I said, I got up at 4 o'clock this morning. I want you to try just this little piece. It worked every time. How is it good? I said, tell everybody else. Did they always eat their salad? The answer is absolutely not. But you had to pursue it. And as I said, every single day I went to a school and encouraged the kids. We got from the government, for example, we got chicken and turkey. What did people, some of the school systems, they sent it out to be processed. We took our chicken and our turkeys and we cooked them. We cooked them. As I said, we had the tetrazzini. School system said their employees object to, it's too much work. I said, no, it's not up to the employees. No more than Grandparents' Day was up to the staff. It's for the grandparents and the grandchildren. It wasn't up to the principals and my employees what they wanted. And whatever ideas they had, that's what we could do, we would absolutely do.
How much lunch cost? And you said that it was a self-operated program for
Yes.
all the years that you were there.
Right.
So considering the amount of work and the fact that it was fresh food and that you were actually cooking it, what sort of financial challenges were you facing?
The financials, they were huge. But for example, Daniela, what we did is we started in elementary schools, we couldn't have much of an a la carte program because it came out of the, but we started the breakfast program. The breakfast, we did not have to hire new employees. So there was additional income. I started a la carte programs in the middle and high schools. And no, I never allowed vending machines. You know, they said, you've got to put vending machines. Never. I never allowed sodas in anyone. They were in teachers' lounges, they had them. We had no control over it. Never, ever. The Coca-Cola company and the Pepsi-Cola company and the other companies came. Oh, Frank, you can make a lot of money. No, I know how to make money. Not on this kind of garbage. But we did serve a la carte items that in the high schools and middle schools. And yes, we could make money because we had to make money to support. For example, new regulations came out from the federal government again, and I read through them 11 pages of regulations, 11. And I gave a one-page answer, and it's in my paper, that these regulations are absolutely insane. And if they would just concentrate on feeding all the kids, have simple regulations, then food service workers could do what they do best, is to feed the kids. And educators could do what they do best, educate them on a full stomach.
But I was wondering if, based on the new regulations, there were any foods that you served that you wouldn't be able to serve now.
No, they are actually, they're giving you the guidelines, not only for the food that you have served, but the guidelines, what you have to do. It applies not only to food service workers, it applies to the staff, the applications, and it's just absolutely incredible what everybody has to do. And there are objections all around, and the guidelines are truly insane. Insane. So you need lawyers to interpret them, and it is, for example, let me give you one, processed food. We are under USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture. They have lots of commodities. They got, how did this get started? The commodities, the farmers, they had to get rid of their commodities. So who did they give the commodities to? To food service programs. In many ways, we were happy to get it because we could cut our costs. We only had to pay, a very, very small amount. Because feeding and educating our children should be our first line of defense. Because USDA, the commodities that we get, they're processed, and they have to use them because they got to cut their cost. And the regulations that the government comes out with, it affects a great deal, Daniela, the vendors. For example, the vendors in the Northeast, they would have to produce according to the regulation. The ones in the South, in Mississippi, in Alabama, the kids wouldn't eat that. They have to do something else. Come out with regulation, one regulation for the entire country, simple and plain, feed all the kids. And the cost will go down nationwide. And we will raise a healthier generation, and we will once again become the #1 country in the world. We never had a profit. We had a surplus, but our surplus went down dramatically because we were charged more and more, as I said, with items that we considered didn't belong to us. In the central kitchen for the gas, the electricity, the water, the Sonitrol, the custodians. We had to pay for all the benefits, the pension plan of our employees, the benefits of our... So our so-called surplus, not profits, went down dramatically, okay? And I worked until I was 85 years old. So honored, they named the Central Kitchen the Frank A. Harris Nutrition Center. And in my acceptance speech, I said, usually they name something after you die. So I'm glad to be around. But it's no longer now known under the Frank A. Harris Nutrition Center.